The Busch Grand National Series June visit to Rougemont, North Carolina was an event many drivers would like to forget. The biggest short track wreck of the year collected 9 competitors, including then points leader Bobby Labonte. The race leaders found the going around the 3/8 mile track a bit slippery at times, but all eyes turned to who had the tires left to contest the lead in the final 100 laps. Asheville, North Carolina's Robert Presley forged to the front with 91 laps to go and pulled away, but an easy win was stymied by a late caution which bunched the field for a 1-lap green flag shootout. The lap 99 of Jeff Burton blocked Jimmy Hensley's thrust, leaving Presley an uncontested run to his second career Grand National win. Can Presley complete the Rougemont sweep, or is it someone else's day to shine? You'll find out next live here on TNN. The 3/8 mile Orange County Speedway is one of the most competitive tracks the Busch Grand National Series visits each year. And with this being only the second time 300 laps have been contested, we're expecting an entertaining race today. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mark Allen. Thanks for joining us for TNN's continuing live coverage of the NASCAR Busch Grand National Series. This is stop number 23 of the season, and a number of cars on pit road have dings and dents, and a lot of the crew people have bags under their eyes. Now, here with more on why that's the case are my telecast colleagues Mark Garrow and Glenn Jarrett.
We're right in the middle of the dog days of summer for NASCAR's top 2 series, but for the Winston Cup teams, it's a little bit easier to handle these hot summer days. While they're at the racetrack, there's a small army of people back at the shop preparing their race car for the next event. The Busch Grand National Series teams, well, they don't have that advantage.
That's right, Mark. Most of these guys are on much more limited sponsorships and therefore much more limited budgets. They don't have the luxury of having a crew of 8 or 10 people back in the shop readying the car for next week's battles. Generally, these guys only have 2 or 3, sometimes 4 full-time personnel. They're all at the racetrack working on the car, getting it ready for that weekend's race. When the race is over, they've really got to haul it to get back to the shop to get the car ready for the next week's battle. And on top of that, most of them only have 2 or 3 cars. So if they crash a car, have some damage, they got to hurry back and get it fixed to run it the next week.
Of course, getting here to Rougemont, they've gone through a torturous schedule that began in Daytona back in February. And from there, they went to Richmond, Virginia, and then on to Rockingham, North Carolina.
After Rockingham, they went to Martinsville, Virginia, then to Barberville, Florida. That's a new stop on this circuit. NASCAR opening up new markets for this series, but it creates a lot of extra travel for the guys.
From there to Hickory, North Carolina, then to the oldest superspeedway in America, Darlington, South Carolina, then on to Bristol, Tennessee, and then to Gainesville, Georgia.
After Gainesville, Georgia, they go north again to South Boston, Virginia, then on up to Nazareth, Pennsylvania, then back to Charlotte. That's a lot of travel. North, south, north again.
Then to Dover, Delaware, to Rougemont, North Carolina, back to Hickory, North Carolina, and then the real traveling began. The Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, then a 3-race swing in the Northeast. First in Watkins Glen, New York, followed by a trip to Oxford, Maine, and then on down to Loudon, New Hampshire.
And those guys made those trips up and back every week. After Loudon, New Hampshire, it was South Boston, Virginia, another race in Virginia at Dublin, then up into the Midwest to Indianapolis, Indiana. That's a long haul.
And of course, that all brings us to here today, the Texas Pete Sauces 300 at Rougemont.
There is a notable absence from today's field. 5-time Grand National champion Jack Ingram was scheduled to make his final short track appearance before retirement. However, on the way back from Indianapolis last weekend, his crew chief's son, Robbie Ingram, was fatally injured in a traffic accident in Kentucky. He is survived by a wife and 3 children, and if you wish to make a contribution to help them with the many expenses they'll face over the years, you can do that by addressing it to the Robbie Ingram Memorial Fund, Wachovia Bank, 1 Vermont Avenue in Asheville, North Carolina, and the zip code is 28704. We'll be right back.
Today's exclusive coverage of the Texas Pete Sauces 300 on TNN is brought to you by new Haviland Formula 3 motor oil. Add more life to your car. By Miller Genuine Draft, cold filtered for real draft taste. So get out of the old, get into the cold. By Eagle One Car Care Products. Eagle One is visual perfection. And by Champion Batteries, when you can't wait to get started.
This is the 23rd stop of the season, and we have our 14th different pole winner of the season. Let's bring in the 4th member of our telecast crew, Bill Hennessy, who's trackside with the man who qualified quickest for today's race.
Mark, we have a very elated pole winner here, Kenny Wallace, 95.057 miles per hour. It's been a year and 4 months since you last won one of these things.
Well, you know, the poles are really nice. We've had a lot of top fives this year and a lot of second places, but you know, it's nice to get the pole anytime you can. We're not too overly pumped up about it. You know, we need to get a good race in here. We're a championship contender, Bobby Labonte and Jimmy Hensley, and we're all running at it. So we can just get a good run. That's what we're looking for.
Looks like a strong run, and of course you've got your little mascot over there, the Troll of Good Luck, riding on the upright of the chassis frame rail over there. I think it's going to bring you a little luck this afternoon.
Well, that's Bertie. That's my crew chief. He's into the trolls. We taped him on the door bar, and they've been pretty scared before, but they've been doing us a good job.
You had one thing you wanted to say before we went on.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to Jack Ingram. Jack, we feel for you, buddy, and we're all thinking about you here. Our thoughts go out to you and your wife and the whole family.
Kenny Wallace on the pole for today's race, but we can't get the event going until we get the words to gentlemen to fire their engines. Let's go trackside.
Ladies and gentlemen, to give us the command, the president of Burns Food Stores, Mr. Richard Terrell.
Ladies and gentlemen, start your engines.
Points battle developing in the Grand National Series as we head down the stretch. Let's take a look at it in this week's Haviland Racing Updates. Despite stubbing his toe last Saturday in Indianapolis, a look at previous finishes proves why Kenny Wallace has been on top of the Grand National standings much of the season. In addition to his first 2 BGN wins, the Pontiac driver has 10 top 10 finishes and also leads the earnings list with $180,000. His chief rival, Bobby Labonte, has mirrored Wallace's 2 wins and is coming off a victory at Indy last week. But the difference between the two is that the Olds driver has only 6 top 10 efforts to date. The Virginia gentleman, Jimmy Hensley, has also been in victory lane more than once and has the most poles. But his problem has been when he's had an off night, he's been way off. This is the trio set to slug it out down the stretch where Wallace enjoys an 84-point bulge. It grows to 181 points over Hensley, with Joe Nemechek and Chuck Bound completing the top 5. 30 drivers have rolled off the grid. Let's lay the starting grid for today's Texas Pete Sauces 300 here at the Orange County Speedway in Rougemont, North Carolina. On the pole for the first time this season, Kenny Wallace. Next to him, the man who has 4 pole positions, Jimmy Hensley. In the second row, we're looking at Bobby Labonte, number 2 in the Grand National points, along with David Green. Starting in the third row, Jeff Gordon, one of the rookie contenders, along with David Green and Todd Bodine, who has a new sponsor. In the fourth row, we're looking to see Joe Nemechek, a strong contender in the top 10 points, and Robert Presley, the man who won this race back in June. And in the fifth row, Joe Bessie, a Grand National North visitor, and Jeff Burton.
In row number 6 on the inside, it's going to be Tommy Houston, who's winless so far in 1991. Beside him, Alabama rookie Mike Oliver. In row number 7, the 13th starter from nearby Durham, North Carolina, Jay Fogelman. Beside him, the veteran and one-time winner in 1991, Butch Miller. In row number 8 on the inside, Ward Burton, the pole winner from Indy a week ago. Beside him, the rookie contender, Jeff Green. In row 9, Patty Moise. And beside her, Chuck Bound, the defending series champion. And in row number 10 on the inside, Patty's husband, Elton Sawyer. Beside him, Bobby Donner of Chicago, Illinois.
In the 11th row, rookie contender Richard Lassiter and Steve Grissom. In the row number 12, Cecil Eunice and Eddie Goodson. Row number 13, one of the other female competitors, Shauna Robinson and Tom Peck. In the 14th row, Dave Resendiz from Masonic, Massachusetts, and Troy Beebe. And in the 15th row, the provisional starters for this afternoon's race, Ed Barrier and a man who finished second last week, Tracy Leslie, from Famine to Feast this week.
4 drivers didn't make the show: Jim Brinkley, Peter Suspenza, Hal Goodson, and Rich Burgess.
And this is the way they'll lay out 11 Oldsmobiles, the predominant car in today's race. Goodyear, the predominant tire. The field now being pulled onto pit road to let them see where their pit spaces are. 30 cars coming down pit road. It is a narrow pit road here as Dave Rezendes is already into the pits with his hood up. 3/8 mile Speedway. There you see the banking, the front straight and back straight, same length. Seating capacity 8,500, and most of those seats are filled this afternoon.
Temperature 86 degrees, 55% humidity. The wind slight out of the northwest, about 8 miles per hour. It's a little bit cloudy, but mostly sunshine. And Glenn, Jarrett, very hot, very high humidity. Before the race, a number of drivers taking special care as we see them working on car number 79. That's Dave Rezendes, the Massachusetts driver. They were taking a lot of special care trying to stay cool this afternoon.
That's right, Mark. It looks like they've got whatever problem Rezendes has is repaired there as he pulls away before the field passes him by. The heat is not as hot here today as it has been earlier in the week. However, the humidity is still up around 55–60%. When you've got temperatures in the 80s, high 80s or low 90s, and a humidity factor over 55%, it really gets hot inside those race cars. You're talking 130, 140 degree temperature in there. That's really tough. The guys have hooked up their cool suits, cool helmets, and so forth. They're looking for a long, hot afternoon.
The number 1 and 2 pointsmen line up nose to tail. Kenny Wallace on the pole, Bobby Labonte right behind him, and the other man who's in the thick of that title chase, Jimmy Hensley, on the outside of the front row as the safety car has pulled off the speedway. The field is in good form. The green flag is out, and we're underway for 300 laps of Grand National Racing. And jumping quickly into the top spot is Kenny Wallace with Hensley right behind him, followed by Bobby Labonte and Joe Nemechek. Good battle side by side there. The field is sorting itself out nicely, heading down the back straight after completing one lap. The early race report we get is a rocker arm problem on the Dave Rezendes entry. He is near the back of the field. A battle up front for the lead, and Hensley takes it.
Yeah, he certainly did. He made a nice move on Wallace there, drove right up underneath him. Looks like Jimmy's car really working well down low on the racetrack. That could be a key factor here.
Jimmy Hensley has led more races this season than any other driver. It's the 13th time that Oldsmobile has been at the point this year.
He's been very consistent, Mark. The car, when it runs well, it always runs up front. He finds a way to forge into the lead.
The early top 5 as we've completed 4 laps of action. Jimmy Hensley, the 36 of Kenny Wallace, the 44 of Bobby Labonte, the 1 of rookie contender Jeff Gordon. Right behind him, another rookie, David Green, in the 8 car. A shot, the 27 car of Ward Burton, in a close side-by-side battle with Jay Fogelman, and we have a spin and 1. That is Fogelman. You saw that start. Jay Fogelman, the Durham, North Carolina driver in the Sam Art car, gets back up to speed. There is no caution.
That's really going to hurt him. A lot of high hopes for this team. That's the Sam Art car coming into this race. Fogelman is a 1988 track champion here at Orange County. He really knows his way around this racetrack. Bad break for him early on.
Well, I think he caused a little bit of that bad break, Mark. He got in the corner. He was a little loose, and he got in there a little hot, and he got up into Ward Burton in 27, and he let the car get away from him. He did do a nice job in riding it and continuing on without losing a lap. That didn't do any good for his chances this afternoon, though. He's way at the back of the pack, and the leaders are closing in on him.
Meanwhile, back up front, Jimmy Hensley has opened a sizable lead in the 25 car over that black 36 of Kenny Wallace. Behind him is Bobby Labonte, the top 3 contenders, and Glenn, they have pulled off to a sizable advantage after just 9 laps.
Well, they certainly have. They're putting distance between themselves and the rest of the field, you know, and I'm sure they've got, you see the action there, 27 Ward Burton really banging on Butch Miller.
That's the former machine that Ward Burton drove at the beginning of the season. Car number 75 is owned by Charlie Henderson out of Bristol, and of course when Ward jumped over to car number 27, Butch Miller took over that ride in car 75, but we've got a problem at Cecil Eunice in the concrete retaining wall.
And that's up in turn number 3, bringing out our first caution on lap number 10 here at the Orange County Speedway. Well, they got a few more laps into this race than they did back in June. It was lap 8 when Tracy Leslie had problems with Butch Miller.
You can see the car 19 there, Cecil Eunice. Cecil is a rookie in this series this year. Has had some really good runs, but he has hit the wall a ton. The right front of that car is really banged in.
We're under our first caution of the afternoon as the backstretch crew works on Joe Bessie's machine. We'll be back to Talk more about the action here with 300 laps on the books in the Texas Pete Sauces 300 from the Orange County. We'll be going back to racing here at the Orange County Speedway in just a moment. 15 laps are complete. The last 4 of those have been run under caution for the Cecil Guinness Wallbanger up in turn number 3. One of the cars that has already fallen down a lap early in this event is Bobby Dotter, the Chicago, Illinois driver, is sporting new colors and a sponsor in this week's race. And those colors are about as bright as they can be. Cling Free has jumped on the car last week at Indianapolis.
You can't miss that car. Unfortunately for Bobby Dotter, he's had a very tough go in the last 12 races. Just 1 top 5 and 2 top 10.
Let's go down quickly to Bill Hennessy, who's with the victim of that first incident.
Cecil Eunice, the Blackshears, Georgia driver, started 23rd on the field. What happened out there going into turn 3, Cecil?
Ed Berrier just caught me in the back, you know, when I went down the back runaway. Just carried me right into the wall.
Looks like you took a pretty hard thing. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Busch Grand National North driver Joe Bessie was having transmission problems. That's why he dropped off the pace at the start.
With the field back under green, Jimmy Hensley immediately jumps to an advantage in the 25 car with Kenny Wallace right behind him. He's followed by the 44 of Bobby Labonte. Right behind him, rookie contender David Green, and behind him in the 1 car, Jeff Gordon, another strong rookie. Once again, as before, Glenn, those top 2 cars are trying to pull off right away on cooler tires.
Well, they are right now, Mark. You know, it's kind of unusual to see Jimmy Hensley really push a car to get it out front this quick, this early, to put that kind of distance on the field. But evidently, the car's hooked up so well that he feels like that he can go ahead and run it full bore right now and not have to worry about it. So he's really setting a blistering pace. Kenny Wallace doing a good job just hanging on.
And in that speed shot, damage already on some of the cars. Mike Oliver's car, the black 28, has got some damage up on the nose of that machine. We talked about it in the open. This is the time of year where about all they can do is take the ball-peen hammer out and tear some fender away, as now Butch Miller makes a move underneath.
Speaking of cars with damage, Chuck Bound, a real tough accident in practice when the oil line came off that race car. Very badly damaged. They did the best they could, Glenn, to put that car back in one piece, but certainly it's not the way they would have liked to start this race.
Well, it's not, Mark, but you see Chuck right there just kind of taking his time, waiting on Oliver and Miller to get through with whatever they're going to do. Then he's going to pass them both by. The car seems to be working really well right now. I talked to crew chief Jeff Hensley about what had happened. When he hit the wall, an oil line broke loose on the car, put oil under the front tires going into the first turn. He slammed the wall real hard. It shoved the frame rail over 1 inch. But they have put longer control arms, bottom and top A-frames on the car to put the wheel back into its position where it should be. They feel like they're going to be okay. And Jeff made a comment that I thought was very appropriate. He said, if we don't run out of shims and spacers, he said, we're going to give them a run for it tonight.
Jimmy Hensley continues to lead the event. He is within 200 points of Grand National points leader Kenny Wallace, who is right behind him, and they are stretching the margin. The battle for third is a good one between the 44 of Bobby Labonte and David Green. But you can, there are 10 car lengths between the front duo and the battle for third spot. Green, a victor earlier this year at Lanier, while Hensley has 2 victories on the 1991 trail. Is running a race car nicknamed Holly. I talked to him before the race and asked him, I said, why is that car nicknamed that way? Because we all know Rusty Wallace likes to name his race cars. And Kenny said, my crew chief named it, go ask him. And Steve Bird said, hey, I don't want to talk about it. But he had a twinkle in his eye at the time.
They talked about that troll doll in the passenger side of that Cox-treated lumber Pontiac during the pre-race interview. That troll is named Magilla. Now, one of the crewmen said that it's named Magilla the Gorilla, named after crew chief Steve Bird. And I said, well, how did he get that nickname? He said, if I told you, I'd be fired. And I asked Steve Bird about it, and he was no comment.
That's a Hoosier versus Goodyear battle up front. Since the Charlotte race, Hensley has been running the Hoosier tire, while Kenny Wallace has been on Goodyear's all season. And they have pulled well away those front 4 cars from the rest of the field, and they will be encountering lap traffic before too long. Jimmy Hensley, one of the unsponsored drivers. There are 3 of them in the top 10 in the Grand National standings. We've been talking all season about how long can Jimmy Hensley run without a major sponsor. They had Golden Gallon on the car for a portion of the year, but he's been running the last 10 races with a bare hood.
Rumor has it they've got a letter of commitment for 1992, but until, of course, the ink is dry on the actual contract, they're out there looking for a sponsorship. And Jimmy Hensley was a lot closer in the point battle before they went up on the northern swing, and he told me that having the Hoosier tires, they weren't quite as competitive on that northern swing. Going into that three-race swing, 73 points down to the leader in second place. When they left Loudon, New Hampshire, he was third, minus 146. A lot of damage done to his championship hopes in that northeastern swing for those cars earlier this year.
David Green in the 8 car now all over the 44 of Bobby Labonte. Labonte was involved in a wreck early in this race back in June, but still came back to finish 6th. David Green had a strong run all afternoon, even spent a good part of the race in the lead. He is the current rookie points leader. He's had a strong run in the last 10 races to take over that honor. And this is where lap traffic starts to play a factor.
Well, absolutely, and you see the car of Labonte and Green both working very well in lap traffic. However, David Green is able to hold his car down a little bit on the racetrack as they come off the turns. You see him, there he goes, he puts a fender up alongside of Labonte. I believe he's going to be able to make a pass on him here because you beat a guy coming off the corner. You don't beat him getting in, you beat him coming off. And right now, David Green's car is a little quicker coming off the corners.
Oldsmobile versus Oldsmobile in the battle for third here at the Orange County Speedway. 270 feet on the front straight and the back straight. Doesn't give you a whole lot of time to make your move, but now look at Green getting underneath.
Yeah, once again, you see how well his car works down low, and he just simply drives right by Bobby Labonte. This early in the race, Bobby realizes that David's a little bit quicker. There's no sense in taking chances running side by side. It slows you down. Let the guy go on. He may know something about a way around the racetrack that you might not know. Might not hurt to follow, but in this case, David Green's pulling away. And in fact, at the rate he's running, I think he's going to be able to catch the leader.
And it also points out something else that we see here at this track is this is once again the battle for the lead as 25 Hensley is now closing in on lap traffic. There is more than one groove around this racetrack.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I was going to bring out a while ago, Mark, is that this racetrack, there are 3 distinct grooves that you can run. There you see the car of Ed Barrier at 33 and 79 Dave Resendez having. That's the rocker arm off of Dave Resendez's car. You can see it right now. It's broken. You see the push rod there. It's holding it. That's a major problem. They're going to have a tough time getting him back in this thing.
And the 33 car was showing some of the damage from that incident with Cecil Eunice, which precipitated our first caution.
This has to be a very disappointing day for the 33 car of Ed Barrier. That's the same car that he sat on the pole here last year in this race. He went from first last year to last this year. It's got to be a disappointing time for him.
Jimmy Hensley continues to work his way through lapped traffic as he has been pretty much in control since the drop of the green. Back with more action. 44 laps around the book as Ed Barrier goes behind the wall to join Cecil Eunice. How much more attrition will we see? Stay with us.
Laps of the Texas Pete Sauces 300. Jimmy Hensley continues to hold the top spot. He's working some heavy lap traffic now. Kenny Wallace holds on to second, but he's getting pressure from David Green in the 3rd spot, and in the 4th spot, Bobby Labonte. And here's Kenny Wallace now starting to press Jimmy Hensley. Also, that's in car 36. Car number 8, David Green is right there, so we've got a good tussle. 3 cars for that number 1 position.
And there goes Kenny Wallace underneath, and he moves back into the lead, and he made that look easy.
Well, he did, Mark. But you know what caused it? What set that up was the 27 car you see entering the turn right in front of Kenny Wallace there. We've got caution on the racetrack now. Big crash.
Trouble in turn number 1.
Elton Sawyer.
Second caution flag of the day.
This is Elton Sawyer
and Patty Moise.
Husband and wife. It had to happen sometime.
I want to be at the dinner table tonight.
No, I don't want to be at the dinner table tonight.
I'm not sure there's going to be a dinner table tonight.
Patty Moise was involved in that incident, which we showed you at the top of the broadcast. The biggest short track incident there is Elton Sawyer in the ride in that 67 car.
We've made a lot of jokes when these two got on the circuit, started running the races together, that what would happen if they had an accident. We're about to find out.
Well, I would hate to be in Bill Hennessy's shoes right now, because if knocks these cars out of the race, he's the guy that's got to interview them.
Well, at least there's no dishes to throw.
There may be later on.
But they may be strong enough to throw tires at each other. Let's go trackside to Bill Hennessy.
We'll be talking to Elton Sawyer in just a few moments, but Ed Barrier, you've been sidelined. What's the problem here on your car?
I don't know. We had some engine troubles today. I don't know. I don't really know what happened. I think I might have dropped a valve or something. But I think we're going to be in pretty good shape. We had a bad qualifying effort, but Texas Pete, you know, Gardner Foods really helped us out.
What happened with you and Cecil Eunice there in turn 3 a little earlier?
I didn't hear you.
I said, what happened between you and Cecil Eunice in turn 3?
I don't know. Looked like to me Cecil slowed up awful quick. I thought he cut a tire down or something. You know, I couldn't stay off of him. I don't really know what happened.
We'll be back with more of the Texas Pete Sauces 300 from Rougemont, North Carolina in moments on TNN.
Grammy-winning Vince Gill joins the Grand Ole Opry live tonight at 8:30 Eastern on TNN.
We're having a sale, and ooh, what a sale!
It's a time you'll remember when your best friend becomes your best friend. When true love survives for days at a time. When you know all the answers. When you wear your favorite clothes. There's a sale now at Belk. With prices so low you can have even more favorite clothes. 25 to 35% off at Belk.
Graduation, quite a day. But where do you go from here? You want something challenging. You'll find it in the Air National Guard. The Air Guard can give you skills you'll use for a lifetime. You'll make good money, and after you train, you serve just 2 days a month and 15 days a year. That means time for yourself and your country. The Air National Guard, because graduation isn't the end, it's just the beginning.
We're under caution for the second time this afternoon. As you see, David Green up into the second spot, having an excellent run, and the other strong rookie contender for that rookie championship, Jeff Gordon, down in the 5th spot. So the rookies at this point are availing themselves quite nicely. Patty Moise is back on the Speedway, and now Elton Sawyer, her husband of less than 9 months in that 67 car, is now pulling out with considerable damage. Fortunately, the hood isn't buckled up in a spot where he can't see.
Well, no, I'm wondering what the problem was that he couldn't see when he and Patty got together, because knowing male and female relationships as I do, it was Elton's fault.
And a good jump by Kenny Wallace gives him a nice advantage as we go back to green flag on lap number 63. That's the lap 9 car of Troy Beebe between him and the second place 8 car of David Green. Then right behind him, Jimmy Hensley, as the field comes through turn number 4.
Mark, it's kind of strange that number 9 car up, Beebe, since he got lapped under heavy traffic a while ago, he's run right with the leaders. They haven't been able to pull away from him.
David Green applying some pressure to him, but not with much success at the moment, as Beebe is up the track a little bit and Green moves down to the low side.
Well, maybe he got following Kenny Wallace. That's how you get around this place. That's where you're supposed to be.
That's right. You follow a guy that's going fast. If he passes you, he knows more than you do.
Kenny Wallace, the current Grand National points leader, coming off his first failure to finish of the season last week in Indianapolis, which shored up the points a good bit. He was really starting to pull away from Bobby Labonte, Jimmy Hensley, and the rest of the field. As Hensley now reels in David Green, Troy Beebe has been dispatched for the moment. He is a lap car right behind him, the 5 of Jay Fogelman. But look at Kenny Wallace pull away.
Wallace has just checked out to a new zip code on this field. There you see the 63 of Chuck Bound, badly damaged in practice, but that car's really been running strong. He's picked up 9 spots, just 62 laps into this race. Down to the inside, that's rookie Jeff Green in car number 52, banging doors with car number 79, Dave Rezendes. And let's make it 3-1. That's Joe Nemechek in car 87.
Well, that was a great move that Nemechek made there. He used the fact that, and we got a car in the wall in turn 1. It's Mike Oliver, 28. He just brushes the wall, continues going, no caution.
And there's Bobby Labonte, the man who is chasing Kenny Wallace for the Grand National title. He's currently in the 4th spot. He picked up the victory last week in Indianapolis under some strange circumstances, but it was a very important win, and he talked about what that does toward vaulting him back into the title chase to catch Kenny Wallace.
Well, I mean, it was, you know, he had to have some bad luck for, you know, and me to have good luck for to kind of get a little closer run at it, because it was, you know, about out of reach really if he hadn't had any bad luck. So you know, it was really important. Our Penrose Oaks been running good all night. So, I mean, I think we were been running good. We just had our bad breaks, and that's just part of racing. You're going to have them. We might have them again. Who knows?
Bobby Labonte really needed that win at Indy. He had only one top 10 finish in the previous 6 races, and for a while there he had quite a strain going, because after finishing 36th at Daytona, the next 14 races he finished out of the top 10 only once. Then he went into that mini slump and obviously broke out at Indy.
Now there's a statistic that we'd like to show you here in just a few moments, what the point difference was between Kenny Wallace and Bobby Labonte the first time they were at this racetrack, as the work continues on the 67 of Elton Sawyer. Considerable front end damage. Obviously is out of any contention. He just wants to put whatever laps he can put on the Speedway. But when Kenny Wallace came to this race back in June, he was 111 points behind Bobby Labonte. 9 races later, they come back here. He's up by 84 points. That's a 195-point swing.
Bobby Labonte just had some terrible luck. He had a bad finish in New Hampshire, then he had a tough race at South Boston, followed up by disaster at Pulaski. Really cost him big time. There's Joe Nemechek, car number 87, and Steve Grissom, the young Gadsden, Alabama driver you just saw on the right hand of your screen, in car number 31. They're going at it pretty strong out at turn number 2.
Grissom has been a very, very strong contender on the short tracks of late this year, and he's wasting no time right now in trying to get on up there. Let's go down to the pits with Bill Hennessy now for
Eldon Sawyer's car just came into the pits. Eldon looks like he got a pinhole in the radiator, but it was all caused when you and your wife had a little collision on the track. What happened out there?
Well, it was really a bad deal. We just went off in the corner, and Patty was in front of me, and I don't know if her and the car in front of her touched or what, but the car got out from underneath her, and I just didn't have anywhere to go.
Would you call that a no-fault collision?
I couldn't hear you.
I said, would that be a no-fault collision?
Well, I don't think it was anybody's fault.
There we go, Eldon Sawyer, who's out of the race now.
Publicly, they say no fault, but I wonder what happens when we get home. Excellent action back in the pack, the battle for 6th. The 34 car of Todd Bodine, 59. Robert Presley, 99. Jeff Burton and Chuck Bound, who started 18th with a battered and beaten race car, is right in the middle of it.
Bound's car seemingly working best down on the bottom of the racetrack, and that's kind of unusual. You see him there, he loses a little traction coming off the turn, but all 4 of those cars hooked up really well. And look, Jeff Burton really tagged Robert Preston, gets him out of shape, allows Chuck Bound to go back by him and pull up on the bumper of Robert Presley. I'm sure that Burton's going to regret that move a little bit, cost him a spot on the racetrack.
And that allows Todd Bodine to pull off ahead of that trio of action as Kenny Wallace continues to circulate up front. The 42 is Patty Moesi, subject to part of our second caution of the afternoon with her husband, Elton Sawyer. Now the 34 car of Todd Bodine, you notice that's a different color scheme for him from what we've seen throughout much of the season. That's brand new sponsorship for the rest of 1991. Hungry Jack biscuits around the car. And we talked to Todd Bodine and asked him what that sponsorship dollars are going to allow him to do for the rest of the season.
Pillsbury and Hungry Jack came on board for this year. Remainder of this year, and possibly next year, and with 5 Winston Cup races. And you know, we're looking to the future. We want to grow with them. Hungry Jack Brands wants to grow into Winston Cup eventually, and that's where we're headed. So it looks good for us.
And part of what's going to allow them to do is take money that's been coming out of the pocket of car owners Frank Cece and Scott Welliver and really let the sponsor help to defray some of the expenses, the tire costs, engine costs, and shop costs.
That's right, Mark. And let's clarify one thing there. That's Hungry Jack biscuits, pancakes, syrup, and potatoes.
It says that on the rear deck lid of that car. It may be the longest message on the rear deck lid of any machine out there this afternoon.
A lot of heavy traffic for leader Kenny Wallace. He's trying to pick his way through there. It's steaming up his rearview mirror. There's car number 8, the rookie David Green, looking for his second win of 1991 after winning earlier this year in Gainesville, Georgia.
Green putting a lot of pressure on the leader Kenny Wallace right now. That number 8 car, even when Bobby Hamilton drove that car last year, it ran extremely well here, and he's really giving it a ride this afternoon.
And And will it be family help? Because in the 52 car right in front is Jeff Green, the younger brother of David Green, who's got that ride for a good part of the rest of the season now.
Jeff Green went to high school with Mike Waltrip out there in Owensboro, Kentucky. Both the Greens hailing from there, but Jeff trading maybe test scores or maybe answers during tests with Mike Waltrip at some point.
And David Green driving well beyond his rookie status in the series. Glenn, you've been impressed with him all season.
Well, I have, Mark. I think he's a very capable performer, very talented. He's behind the wheel of a good race car. They've had some bad luck. They've created a little bit of their own bad luck with a little bit of inexperience. But as the season has gone on, this team has gotten stronger and stronger and stronger. And one of the things you see him handling himself really well in traffic right now. One of the things that's impressed me most about him is how he handles himself on super speedways. He really does a good job there, and he's had limited experience. This is a guy that's going to be a future star in this sport.
Black is the car color to have up front as Kenny Wallace leads David Green. We're approaching 1/3 of the way into the Texas Pete Sauces 300. Stay with us.
Today's coverage of the Texas Pete Sauces 300 is being brought to you by the more than 550 AutoZone stores across America. AutoZone, the right parts at the right price.
The field is circulating under caution at 35 miles an hour because of an incident over in turn 3 just a few moments ago as we've completed 1/3 of the event. That's Chuck Bound in the 63 car. The action will be back in the pack to the left portion of your screen, Glenn.
Well, you saw Robert Presley get out of shape there. Might have gotten together with car number 31, Steve Grissom. You see Presley sliding up the racetrack. In that heavy traffic, you see all the cars. Shona Robinson in 77 getting into Tommy Houston, 72 Tracy Leslie sliding through there. Watch again as you see Presley. No, he just loses it. Grissom never touched him. Looks like maybe a tire went down or something because the car just went right. Remember, you see Tommy Houston take evasive action, get clobbered by Shona Robinson.
Tough break for Tommy Houston. He comes into this race winless, and only one time since 1982 when they formed the Grand National Series has he gone winless. That was in 1987.
And part of the ramifications of that incident, the white black blur going through the screen, was Kenny Wallace passing all of those cars. So every one of those cars in that incident is at least one lap down. Patty Moise was already a number of laps down because of her earlier incident with husband Elton Sawyer. 104 laps now complete, as Chuck Bound is continuing to make a great effort. Now, here's a fellow who last week had the race under control, and with 10 laps to go, had his seatbelt come undone under caution. We talked to him about that incident before the race, and there was still some pain in his voice. And in fact, Chuck Bound, you know, he just stood there and he said, listen, he said, what can happen to us next? We've had all sorts of problems this year.
A lot of people said after that race, why didn't he go on for 10 laps? Why did he try to chance it? Today earlier, he had a brake line, oil line come on down. He almost knocked the wall down. If he had been unbuckled and that same thing happened at Indy, would have been a tragic type of situation.
Well, Chuck Bound collected his thoughts for us after we asked him that question, and here was a response about the Indy seatbelt situation.
Gosh, another gremlin has struck again. It was very frustrating to give up a race with 10 laps to go, that we were dominating the later stages so strongly that, you know, it was just our race, and I really was hungry for a win at Indy. We've run good up there twice in the past, and, you know, we were looking good this time, but it just weren't to be. I had to stop and hook those belts back up, and that cost us the track position. It was under a caution flag, fortunately, so we didn't go down a lap. But it took us out of the win with 10 laps to go. It just wasn't enough time to get it through the field and back to the front.
Prior to that final caution, Chuck Bound had opened up a 7-second lead over Bobby Labonte. He needed a miracle to win, and by God, he got one.
Well, he did get one, Mark. You know, and I asked Chuck also if he had it to do over again, with, you know, knowing what it cost him, the amount of money and the win, would you try to run those last 10 laps without that seatbelt? He said, hey, you're talking to a guy who won't even pull out of his driveway without his belts buckled. So everybody pay attention. That's a good point.
Of course, it is Bound's profession. It's what he does for a living. He needs to be alive to do it. You know, he's one driver, Mark Allen, that's been very hot as of lately. His last 7 races, he's averaged a 6.1. He could have won 4 out of the last 5 events. And just to show you an example of, you know, how strong he's been recently, his first 15 races, he averaged 17th. Now just a tick over 6th. He's been one of the strongest cars over the last portion of these dog days of summer.
He's had the best finishes over that stretch of race of any driver, with Steve Grissom second. Let's go down trackside to Bill Hennessy, who has an update.
One-man strategy with Bobby King here is the fact that y'all took on 4 fresh tires and fuel. Y'all can go the distance now.
That's right. We're going the rest of the way, we hope.
Jimmy Hensley, number 25 car, is set to go. He's at the back of the pack, but watch him move.
And we'll watch him move right now as the field goes back to green. Once again, a good jump by Kenny Wallace in the 59. Robert Presley trying to get back in the lead lap. The 8 car, David Green, sitting back in the second spot as the field heads through the backstretch already into turn number 3.
Robert Presley is really going to be working to get back on the lead lap. Between him and Chuck Bound, they've sort of been flip-flopping victories back here at Rougemont. They're the only 2 guys to win in the last 4 events.
Well, that's right, Mark. And, you know, before that incident happened involving Presley that spun him out, put him a lap down, his car was running about the same speed as the leader, Kenny Wallace. Wallace had bolted out to about a half a lap lead, but the speeds had stabilized pretty much now. But he's not going to be able to do anything with Kenny Wallace now. Kenny knows how strong Robert is here. He wants to keep him a lap down if any way possible.
The next challenge for Presley will be to keep David Green behind him, but you see Green already has the preferred line down low.
Absolutely, and that's the line that David Green loves around this racetrack. If you can keep a car handling low down here, you can really make up some time, because obviously it's the shortest way around this racetrack, and this is one place that David Green really likes.
The 44 of Bobby Labonte is right behind, followed by Jeff Gordon, and Chuck Bound is right up in that pack. That is going to be a battle for the 4th position very soon. A tricky little racetrack here, the Orange County Speedway, but one that also permits you to make some mistakes. Glenn, you and I were talking about that before the race as Bobby Labonte dispatches with Robert Presley, and now the 1 of Jeff Gordon closes in.
Well, Mark, look, you can see right now you can run 3 wide here. You saw Chuck Bound make a great move. Look how low he is down on the racetrack, still getting traction. That's what Orange County Speedway enables you to do. The turns are so wide that you've got plenty of room. I have seen at times 4 cars abreast in these turns here, and none of them really give up any speed. Once they come off those turns, it really seems like things narrow out. But by the turns being so quick and you're able to stick so low, there's a lot of room for error. You can go in low. If the car gets squirted, you've got plenty of room to catch the car as it goes up the racetrack.
And if we had to vote right now for the Miller pit crew of the race, it would have to go to Jeff Hensley and the crew. An hour and a half before qualifying is when Chuck Bound had that oil line come loose, and Mark Garrow, they had a lot of work to do to get that car ready, even to just get out and put a lap on the clock.
They certainly did. They had to replace the rear end. That's Jeff Gordon, the car 19-year-old driver of car number 1. Bound's crew replaced the rear end, the whole white front chassis suspension effort. We should give honorable mention. Steve Bird, the crew chief for Kenny Wallace, climbed underneath Bound's car to help out, and 2 or 3 guys from Jimmy Hensley's Don Beverly team, they also climbed underneath the car, and they apparently did something right, because Chuck Bound has moved from 18th. He's now battling for 4th.
And he's going to take that position from Jeff Gordon. Again, Chuck has that preferred lower line, and he's going to be able to make this pass. I'll tell you what, that is one of the most amazing jobs of car repair that I have ever seen in all my years of racing, because that thing took a lick. They replaced the entire rear end under the car. He's doing a heck of a job out there.
Jeff Gordon, the driver who sat on the pole here back in June and led a good number of laps, hasn't had his chance to get up front yet, because Kenny Wallace is just making a shambles of this race. It's almost like he's running on 7 cylinders to everyone else's 6. But here's good short track action, a good pack of cars.
Tom Peck in car 96 has bottled up that field, because Todd Bodine in car number 34 having some trouble getting around him. Is Joe Nemechek in car number 87 just looking for some running room, as is car 72, Tracy Leslie.
And again, you can see the action that takes place in the turns here. Watch as they go in. You see how tightly they get bunched. Look at this, folks. That's great short track racing right there. You don't see it any better than at Orange County Speedway.
Looks like the parade lap. Are we getting ready to restart this race or what?
Well, Tom Peck would certainly like to think so.
I didn't think you could go 3 wide through the turns, and sure enough, you can't. People had to fall back in line there. That's dangerous moments of racing, as Leslie is under the 34 car of Todd Bodine. Tracy Leslie is down a lap. Leslie coming off his best finish of the season, the second last week at Indy.
There's Tom Peck still bottling up that group just a bit behind him. Tommy Houston in car 6. And on pit road, Jeff Burton, and that's the Armour Chevrolet. Burton, a former track champion here at Orange County. They had high hopes today, but those hopes for victory have been dashed.
That's an overheating problem. They're trying to add fluid to the radiator, but he's gone many laps down. He was only 1 lap down at the finish of this race back in June. In fact, led a good portion of the event before tire problems thrust him out of the lead pack. The 28 car of Mike Oliver, we have a report, is also out for the afternoon as Nemechek in the 87 car is dispatched with the 75 of Butch Miller. But it's just a clean run in the sun right now for Kenny Wallace up at the front of this field. He has pulled off to a pretty sizable advantage over the second place car of David Green. Third is Bobby Labonte. Fourth is Chuck Bound. After 127 laps of action, trouble up in turn 4. That's Nemechek, Houston, and Ward Burton. 3 cars involved in the incident on lap 127.
That's caution flag number 4, and it will cost Tommy Houston another lap. Tough break for Tommy Houston, who came into this race winless. He certainly thought he had a chance, but looks like those hopes have died. We're going to take a quick break and come right back from Rougemont, North Carolina.
Undergone our 4th caution. In fact, in the midst of it right now for an incident up in turns 3 and 4. That's fluid from another car up in turns 1 and 2, Tom Peck, which we'll talk about in just a second. Glenn Jarrett, here's a replay.
Well, you see the cars again bunching up as they go in the corner. Joe Nemechek got a little sideways. Tom Peck had a problem, had to get out of the gas. Nemechek tried to miss him. He turned sideways. Another car tagged him. The other 2 cars spin just for evasive action. You see Nemechek bounce back into number 27 of Ward Burton. Kenny Wallace, the leader, is coming up on that, so fortunately everybody got down and out of the way before he got there, but it did put those guys another lap down.
There's Tom Peck, the McConnellsburg, Pennsylvania driver. That team running unsponsored. He's never been out of the top 10 in 2.5 years, but things have been tight for them. They've been working on an all-volunteer basis. He told me before this race, this was the 6th race on the same motor. And when you start stretching those kinds of things and oil lines and whatnot, eventually you're going to have some sort of a problem.
Well, eventually you will with the internal parts of the engine, Mark. Your rods, your rod bearings, I'm sure they're freshening the engine up, but those things do wear out, and you have to replace them when you're on a limited budget like Tom is. It's tough to do it as often as you'd like.
As the field forms for the restart, some housekeeping business. 99 Jeff Burton is out for the day. Those engine problems were terminal. And in efforts to keep the field safe on pit road, Troy Beebe was black flagged for exiting the pits too quickly. He was called back in and given a 15-second penalty. We're back under green on lap 134 here in the Texas Pete Sauces 300.
Tommy Houston in car 6. He's now on the tail end of being 2 laps down. He'll try to stay out in front of Kenny Wallace long enough to get another caution flag perhaps, and that'll catch up one of the 2 laps that he lost.
Well, Mark, Houston has on fresh tires. He took on tires after that spin, and he got a good jump on Wallace there. But so far today, nobody's been able to stay ahead of Kenny Wallace for very long, and I don't think that Tommy Houston will be either.
This is really a good break for the rest of the field because Wallace has gotten excellent restarts and has been able to pull away from the field, and other folks have had to use up their tires. The 59 car of Robert Presley, you see a bit loose there. Nice driving by Chuck Bound to keep from getting into the back of him.
Of course, Robert Presley is down 1 lap, and he's got some fresher tires on, so he's trying to get up there and catch car number 36 so he can get back on the tail end of the lead lap.
Right. Presley took on tires that time, and you see Kenny Wallace now putting that lap back on Tommy Houston in car number 6. Wallace in the black 36 has virtually been unbeatable here this afternoon, but Presley is right behind Kenny Wallace there. And Presley did take on tires. They did make a chassis adjustment, it looked like. I saw crew chief Ricky Pearson raise the hood. Car seems to be a little loose there after the restart, but he's pretty strong right now.
Well, 4 tires on the 59 car of Robert Presley. Sheer mathematics tells you that if you have 4 tires that are more than 100 laps fresher than the race leader, you're going to be able to catch him. And he's done just that.
Boy, look at him go there, Mark. He's right down on the apron of the racetrack. Again, these wide turns here enable the guy to drive a car down there and make it stick.
And Tommy Houston's doing a nice job of keeping Kenny Wallace occupied.
It seems like he's keeping him pinched to the bottom of the racetrack, and that's really working those right side tires for Kenny Wallace. I'm sure he doesn't want to be working them that hard.
No, and where Kenny Wallace is, you see Houston get a little high there, but where Wallace had been working well was the middle and the upper part of the racetrack. When he was out of lap traffic, he was higher up on the racetrack. This is not his groove, and you see Robert Presley come underneath him. Presley's going to get a lap back. Wallace is going to have no choice but to let him go.
Presley, the June winner at Rougemont, gets his lap back on circuit number 143. Let's remember that could be a factor near the end of this afternoon's race, and now it's Presley side by side with the 6 of Tommy Houston.
Also back in the pack in that same group of cars, you see car number 8 and Chuck Bound in car number 63. Again, Robert Presley in 59 has now passed everybody up in front of him. He sure would like to see a caution flag right now.
There's the second place battle. Car number 8 and car number 63. Chuck Bound with a battered car has battled all the way from 18th to 3rd. He's very much in contention for his 4th win of the season.
Mark, I'm going to go out on a limb a little bit. Chuck Bound will be leading this race before too awfully long. Jeff Hensley told me before the race, they brought that car down here, practiced it. They ran consistent laps, same lap speed within a 1/10 of a second for 150 consecutive laps. That's almost unheard of. That's why they brought that car here. It looks like the crash is not really hurting that badly.
We're 12 laps back under green. The field has sorted itself out nicely. We're approaching halfway in the Texas Pete Sauces 300. Kenny Wallace has yet to pit, as does David Green and Chuck Bound. But we've got some cars with fresher tires that are working their way back to the front. Stay with us. More action continues in a moment. After most restarts, Kenny Wallace has been able to pull away, but the battle for the lead now has been joined by 8 David Green and 63 Chuck Bound as they go through turn 2.
You see the cars exiting turn 2 there and going down the backstretch. Again, Chuck Bound, Kenny Wallace in 36, David Green in 8, and Chuck Bound in 63. Chuck has come from 18th place, done a tremendous job with a battered race car, but in all of his efforts and everybody else, nobody has been able to wrest that lead from Kenny Wallace.
I wonder, as I mentioned before, Steve Bird helped the Hensley Racing crew put together Chuck Bound's car after the practice crash. Wonder if Steve Bird wonders if he did too good of a job back there on the rear end of that race car.
Well, you might think that, Mark, but they never second-guess themselves for helping somebody else out, because next week it may be Steve Bird that needs the help.
Maybe one of the most famous expressions in the sport besides "that's racing" is "what goes around comes around," and they may need to break down the road.
I've always thought, though, that if you're in a battle for the championship or win with the team, if they have a problem, you should go over and pat them on the shoulder, and as sincere as you can be, say, "I'm sorry about that," and leave it at that. But these guys do pitch in all the time and help each other.
Now, this is the one, Jeff Gordon, along with the lap car of Tracy Leslie. Right behind him is a 31 of Steve Grissom. Those cars are 6th and 7th on the Speedway. Jeff Gordon, the pole sitter, his first career Grand National pole came at this track. And Glenn, for some reason, this Speedway seems to be one of those places where a lot of people pick up that first career pole position.
Well, it is, Mark, and again, one of the reasons for that is because of the turn speed that you run here. The turns are wide, fairly steeply banked, and forgiving. You can get in a good lap in one of 3 different grooves on this racetrack, and that's why we see a lot of first-time poles here, and a lot of guys like Jeff Gordon and Steve Grissom. We haven't said a lot about them, but you're looking now at the front 3 of Wallace, Green, and Bound. But those other guys run consistently here all day long, and they wind up with good finishes.
You've been watching this battle for the lead for a while, Glenn Jarrett. David Green obviously leaning all over Kenny Wallace in the 36 car without touching him. Chuck Bound doesn't seem to be trying to really force himself into that situation. What might be his strategy?
Well, his strategy right now is just to sit back. He's caught the leaders. He's proven that he can run with them. The only thing left to do is to pass them. If they continue going at it the way they're going at it right now, Green is going to heat his tires up a little bit, and it won't be long before Chuck Bound's going to slip by him. Then he'll go to work on 36 Wallace.
Well, Tommy Houston will not win this race for the 5th time this afternoon, but it's a good bet that one of those 3 cars that are presently up front are going to be battling for the victory this afternoon. Stay with us. 167 laps are on the board from the Orange County Speedway in Rougemont, North Carolina. More action to follow shortly. You can throw all of that out now as the Red Rocket, the Nescafe Classic Pontiac of Chuck Bound, all the way from 18th place, is now taken over the lead within the last lap, and that is clearly the story of the race. These 8 drivers will be watching the event from the sidelines the rest of the afternoon. Mike Oliver, Eddie Goodson, Elton Sawyer, Ed Barrier, Cecil Eunice, Joe Bessie, Tom Peck, and Jeff Burton are done for the afternoon. But look at Chuck Bound begin to extend the margin over Kenny Wallace in 2nd place. He made the pass look fairly easy, Glenger. We had been talking, he was patient. Did he change that strategy?
No, he just waited until finally he caught David Green on the outside of the track, passed him for 2nd. Then only 2 laps later, he pulled up, and you could see immediately that he was beating Kenny Wallace off the corners. And like I said earlier, that's where you beat a guy. If you're faster than he is coming off, you're going to get by him. He waited until the right time. He got under and simply drove by him. Wallace, we got trouble right now in turn number 4. Jeff Gordon in car number 1 has spun around, made no contact with another car or the wall, rights himself, and continues on, no caution flag.
Chuck Bound got by, so Jeff Gordon, who had a very strong run, the rookie from Pittsboro, Indiana, goes down 1 lap. lap in that Carolina Ford dealer's Ford Thunderbird. Tough break for him. He really was getting around this racetrack strongly.
He was in 6th position at the time, as we'll look at it once again, battling for 5th with Bobby Labonte.
He just simply turned the car too low down on the racetrack for the speed he was running. The back end came out from under him. The car's probably a little loose at this point in the race. He did a tremendous job of spinning the car around and losing no more time than he did.
Car number 27 is Ward Burton, the pole winner from India a week ago. Had a strong run for most of that race, then tried to knock the wall down twice and took himself out of contention in that 12th Big 8 Buick.
Now, we've mentioned several times in this broadcast the problems that our race leader Chuck Bown had earlier today. He had an oil line come loose in practice, and our cameras were rolling at the time, and you can see top of the screen, that smoke is Chuck Bown in the wall.
Grinding up the front and the back end of the race car, severe damage, and you can see there the hood buckled on the right side, and a lot of the damage to that right side you couldn't see, and a lot of the damage, Glenn, was stuff you couldn't see.
So that, you see what they're holding now, that's the oil line that blew loose and caused the crash. When the oil line blew loose, it dumped oil right under the front tires.
And these are aircraft fittings. These are very hard lines to break. The teams check over all of these parts before the race. Those are one of those little 510 detail things that you have to do, because something like that can put you out of a race before you ever even get in it. And in this case, Chuck Bown's crew, before the race, I talked with Jeff Hensley. I interrupted him for just a second. They didn't want to take much of his time because he was pretty busy. And he said, I'm flat worn out. He said, I've been at this for the better part of an hour and 20 minutes. It's hot out there. They didn't have one of those plastic canopies that some of the crews have over their pit spaces there. He said, I'm a tired man.
Well, I bet if we went down and talked to him right now, he's not feeling any tiredness, any fatigue at all. He's excited.
Paddy Moise just hooked Chuck Bown. Moise down 4 or 5 laps, just about spun the leader.
Well, I don't think it was, obviously it wasn't anything intentional, Mark.
Right.
She just got a little bit out of shape and almost got into it.
What about using rear view mirrors for lap traffic? That's always one of the things that NASCAR mentions in the driver meeting, Glenn. But what about the position of the sun here and the ability of a driver to gauge where someone behind them and overtaking them it really is?
Well, you really have to keep a close watch on things. And Paddy Moise and I last night after the Starcatcher deal.
And we've got smoke coming from underneath the 36 car, second place machine of Kenny Wallace. And this could have major ramifications in the Grand National standings if this is a serious problem.
Remember, a week ago he lost 89 points, and he came into this race only 84 up on Bobby Labonte. So we'll see how that plays out the rest of this race. 189 laps into the Texas Pete Sauces 300. We'll be back with more from Rougemont, North Carolina, live on TNN Sports.
I suppose that you can sit back.
Coverage of the Texas Pete Sauces 300 is being brought to you by New Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car.
I suppose that you can relax a little bit when your car is in the lead by about 2.5 seconds over the second place car of now David Green, the third place car of Jimmy Hensley. The ongoing story of this race, and even in the Grand National standings, is the smoke billowing out from under Kenny Wallace's fourth place machine. The black 36 on the right side of your screen. Glenn Jarrett, you've been watching for it.
Well, he continues to lose speed, obviously, and he's losing that's got to be some kind of oil smoke. He has yet to get the black flag. Of course, being the points leader, he probably won't get the black flag until it's definite. No, he just has got the black flag. Okay.
It's about to come out for the very first time.
It is. They're going to wave it right now.
And he is now pulling on to pit road. Kenny Wallace, the Grand National points leader, gives up the lead lap. And a number of potential points to Kenny Wallace and Bobby Labonte comes to a stop.
This has been a real seesaw battle for the championship. First, Kenny Wallace, then Bobby Labonte took the lead. Wallace took it away 3 races ago in Loudon, New Hampshire. And with this problem, with Bobby Labonte still running strong on the racetrack, but in danger of going a lap down to Chuck Bown, Kenny Wallace in danger of losing perhaps the point lead, or getting very close to losing the point lead after this race, as Chuck Bown in car 63 puts a lap on Bobby Labonte, and Bown coming out, and there in front of him is Kenny Wallace.
Trying to keep from going 2 laps down as the Nescafe Classic Pontiac driver, the number 63 machine, Chuck Bown, who has been on a tear lately, and who says himself, hey, a lot of people wrote me out of the Grand National title chase about mid-season. We're not giving up. We're just beginning to get things together, and by golly, if that isn't the case, as the smoke continues to pour out from underneath the 36 car.
Chuck Bound following behind him, hoping that, of course, he doesn't drop down something or lose an oil line or blow a motor, depending on where that smoke is coming from on the Kenny Wallace machine.
Well, if indeed that is oil or something coming out of the car, it's gonna make Bound a little bit loose. Let's go down to the pits now for a report on that car from Bill Hennessy.
And we'll get back to Bill in just a moment here, as now Chuck Bound has dispatched Kenny Wallace at least 2 laps down in this event. Now Bobby Labonte, the other serious contender at this point for the Grand National points lead, is sitting back in unofficially 4th spot on the Speedway right now. Chuck Bound circulating, completing 209 laps of the 300 that will make up this afternoon's race.
Working around car number 52, Jeff Green, and there's car number 34, continuing problems for Todd Bodine. You know, Chuck Bound has led the most laps on the series going into this race, some 689, and over the past 3 years, 2,300 laps. So they've really been strong in the past 3 seasons. Let's go back down to the pits and Bill Hennessy.
Very quickly, Steve Bird. Steve, it's not the rear end or not the motor. What's the problem on the car?
I guess the transmission's leaking. It ain't leaking. It's just blowing out of the breather real bad. It's not leaking no oil. It's just blowing a little smoke out of that transmission.
NASCAR's been conferring with you. Are they going to black flag him and bring him in, or are they going to leave him out there and just take a look?
Well, they brought us in to see if it was blowing oil out, but it's not. NASCAR's seen that. It's just blowing a little smoke out of the transmission.
That's the word from Steve Bird, the crew chief on the car. They're going to try to keep him out there.
Let's set the top 5 for you. Of course, Chuck Bound continues as the race leader. A great march through the pack. David Green is shown in 2nd spot. We mentioned much earlier in the broadcast, 4-tire change for Jimmy Hensley. He has now climbed to 3rd on the Speedway. 4th, the 31 car of Steve Grissom, and Bobby Labonte sitting back in the 5th spot.
Well, Hensley has certainly been the strong, silent one since that change. He's come roaring back up through the field. We haven't had a chance to see him do much of that, but he's a contender.
Also a contender, car 31, Steve Grissom out of Gadsden, Alabama, looking for win number 2 in 1991 in that Roddenberry's Oldsmobile.
Right behind him, the man, number 72, Tracy Leslie, a rookie contender who had his best career Grand National finish last week, a 2nd place up in Indianapolis, but he's having a long afternoon today.
I believe if that race was 5 laps longer, Tracy Leslie might have won. Here's Chuck Bound working on car number 5. That's the Jay Fogle machine, also 75 Butch Miller. Let's go back to the pits and Bill Hennessy.
We're here with Jeff Hensley, crew chief on the Chuck Bound car. Obviously, all that work you did this morning paid off. You got it back pretty close. That looks like he's right on the money.
Well, I think the track has gave to us. The car was a little bit loose to start with. I think the track tightened up a little bit, but this big class Pontiac's working great right now. But, you know, we need to get in here and get some tires. Need to close the stagger up just a little bit to get us put right back in the hunt.
What's going to be your strategy for your pit stop? When are you going to bring him in?
We'll take on all 4, but right now it wouldn't hurt my feelings if it went all the way green.
That's the word from Jeff Hensley. He'd like to see it go green.
No leader ever likes to give up the top spot unless he absolutely has to. And we've only got 80 laps remaining in the race, so it's going to take an act of God or a very timely caution for him to come in.
We're talking about Indianapolis all over again, folks. They wanted it to go green the rest of the way there, and they got within 10 laps, and then everything broke loose for them. We're going to have more from Rougemont, North Carolina. We're on lap 221 of the Texas Pete Sauces 300. Chuck Bound's out front, followed by David Green and Jimmy Hensley. We'll have more of the hot action when we come right back.
And the question that we're starting to watch is, with 4 fresher tires on his car, which he took approximately on lap 50, if he can catch our race leader Chuck Bound. We'll be putting a stopwatch on them in just a moment. Chuck Bound has dominated a good portion of the 2nd half of this race, but now there is no lapped traffic between the 63 of Chuck Bound and the blue 25, the unsponsored hood of Jimmy Hensley.
Well, you see Hensley moving through turns 1 and 2 there, Mark. His car performing very, very well right now. He is closing the margin on leader Chuck Bound. It's not going to be very long before he's up on the rear bumper putting pressure on for the lead.
And Chuck Bound has just put a lap on the 44 of Bobby Labonte, who sits 2nd in the Grand National with points. The field has to sort itself out, though. Turns 3 and 4 just a little bit, as the Bobby Dotter car almost had some problems that cost the field back. Just a moment ago, you saw a pink flash at the top of the screen. That was Bobby Dotter coming onto pit road.
After hitting the wall.
And that will do it every time. Right side tires will go on that machine. The stopwatch goes on Chuck Bound as he comes off the banking this time by. The start-finish line, the margin is only 0.7 of a second, and they are now in lap traffic, Glenn Jarrett, but Bound has shown himself able to work that very well today.
Well, he has, but one disadvantage that he has right now, Mark, is the fact that his tires have about 50 to 60 more laps on them than Jimmy Hensley's do, and working traffic with worn tires is tougher.
Jimmy Hensley has had a very star-crossed week. He went to Darlington, South Carolina Monday to test. They forgot to put the hood bins in. He went out on the track. He discovered they weren't in real quick. The hood came up, creased his roof. Had a blown engine down at Darlington. Then they go to test in Bristol on Wednesday. They blew an engine there. I asked him before the race, are you done with your bad luck for the day? He said, how much more bad luck can you have in a weekend? So maybe the good fortune is finally smiling upon him here this afternoon.
Those three cars just ahead of the leaders. They've been going at it. That's Ward Burton in car 27, Joe Nemechek in 87. He gets the old curly shuffle to the inside and the old punt from the back from car number 79.
And now it is nose to tail for the lead right behind them as Hensley goes down low.
And Hensley is going to be able to make the pass. You see him just simply drive by Chuck Bound. Chuck can't hold him off right now. There's not anything he can do. Hensley's tires are getting a better grip on the racetrack. And Chuck Bound desperately needs a caution plate so he can come in, change those tires, and make the bid to recapture that lead.
That's the second time this afternoon that Jimmy Hensley, the Virginia gentleman, out of Ridgeway, Virginia, has led this race, and I saw a little trace of smoke there as he slid out of turn 3, a little tire smoke out of that Don Beverly Oldsmobile. He may have better tires than Chuck Bound, but Bound trying not to lose sight of the rear deck of that red, white, and blue Oldsmobile.
Well, obviously, Chuck is going to do everything he can to keep up. You do see a little smoke as it's coming off there. It's that looks like a little more than tire smoke to me, Mark. I don't know what that was.
And pulling away, those tires obviously to his advantage. Now, Jimmy Hensley is one of those drivers that doesn't have sponsorship. It's been on and off the car all season. He's been dead and buried several times. Owner Don Beverly said, I don't know how much longer we can race sometime. We talked to Virginia gentleman before the race and said, what has running without sponsorship most of the season done to your competitiveness?
We're real happy with the progress we made this year over last year. As far as some of the short track, we've really been competitive, and that's what we want to be. And I think we're in a good spot. Other just needs a little more money right now.
Well, the ever-optimistic Jimmy Hensley doesn't even really address the issue of money. He says, listen, we've made improvements. Is that the way a driver, Glenn Jarrett, has to think, optimistically, to really keep his crew up?
Well, when you're a driver of the caliber of Jimmy Hensley, you've got a team that's as good as that team is. You have to take that outlook, Mark, because if the driver gets down, it filters right on down through the rest of the crew. Jimmy tries to keep the spirits up. He knows that he's capable of going out and winning as long as they keep that car under him. They're just going to go out and do the best they can from race to race.
Jimmy Hensley is after his third victory of the 1991 campaign. He continues to pull away from Chuck Bound as we have only 42 laps remaining here at the Orange County Speedway in the Texas Pete Sauces 300. Stay with us.
We run out of gas. The Texas Pete Sauces 300 is being brought to you by durable weather beater paint. Only at Sears, the home of America's craftsmen.
Chuck Bound will need a miracle now after just having made a stop on pit road. He's gone a lap down to Jimmy Hensley. Hensley's last victory came in June at the Hickory Motor Speedway. He was on Goodyear tires that day. He's on Hoosier this afternoon. And that's the story of the event to this moment, as Hensley absolutely has this field covered. He is working by the fifth place car. Moments ago, the 59 of Robert Presley. There are less and less cars on the lead lap.
Chuck Bound looked like they added gasoline, Glenn, and perhaps the lack of practice from that crash didn't allow them to get an idea what their fuel mileage was going to be, and that cost them.
Well, I think you're right, Mark, because Jeff Hensley plainly said he wanted to see it go all the way, so he was certain at that time that they could make it on fuel. Obviously, they could not. It's a tough break. It doesn't take anything away from the job those guys did, though. He's still running in fourth position after that pit stop. Tremendous effort on behalf of that team today.
It should come as no surprise that Jimmy Hensley is not only competitive today here, but leading. He finished second back in June in this event, And if it hadn't been for a lapped car between him and then race leader Robert Presley and that one-lap green flag shootout to decide the issue, he might have been able to catch that event as well.
He had a 4th place last year, but before that, really not that much luck. A pair of 14th place finishes and a 24th in the 3 previous races prior to the last 2 here at Rougemont, North Carolina. So apparently getting better every time. A 4th, a 2nd, so first sort of falls in line.
Now, Bobby Labonte had a very strong first half of the race in the 44 car. Underneath him is the 77 of Dave Resendiz, which has had trouble right from the get-go. But Labonte has steadily fallen back since the halfway point in this race and is one of those many cars that are a lap down. We show unofficially only 3 cars on the lead lap.
Car number 8 apparently has had the same problem as Chuck Bound. Shauna Robinson spins car number 77, and that's at the exit of turn number 2. She's trying to get the car turned around.
There is no caution yet. No caution.
I don't think there's going to be a caution where she is. The best thing she could probably do is come down and go around the pit road, the pit wall the other way, and let them continue this thing under green.
And trouble on pit road for David Green. He has also run out of gas as they spray some ether, and caution does come out on the Speedway on lap 277 for the Shauna Robinson spin on the backstretch.
What a tough break for Chuck Bound and David Green. That caution comes 5 laps ago. They're in the hunt for the victory.
Well, and just as they threw the caution, Shauna did what we thought she would do, pull the car back down at the entrance of pit road, turn it around with no incident. But NASCAR saw the car sitting there and in the manner of safety had to throw the flag. Real tough break for David Green. You see him trying to get that car refired. It has run completely out of fuel, and they just can't get it to restart.
And when those engines are hot the way they are after 278 laps, even more difficult to start. Just 22 laps to go in the Texas Pete Sauces 300 here in Rougemont, North Carolina. When we come back, we'll take you to the checkered flag.
An unusual development in Busch Grand National short track racing. The 25 car of Jimmy Hensley is the only car that we show on the lead lap at this point. Glenn Jarrett, when's the last time you can remember that?
It's been a long time, Mark. I can't remember. Certainly as competitive as this series has become, that is absolutely an exception to the rule. The norm has been 6 or 8 cars on the lead lap, but Jimmy Hensley's got this one in the bag, providing nothing happens between now and the next 19 laps.
And Hensley gets the great jump that he needed to get by the 59 car of Robert Presley and keep him from working up there trying to unlap himself. And Hensley is off to the races. Gentlemen, 2 previous victories this season. He leads in number of pole positions, one with 4. He sits 3rd in the Grand National points, and he stands to gain some significant ground because of the problems that Kenny Wallace has had. As good battle on the Speedway between the 87 car of Joe Nemechek and the 59 of Robert Presley, 2 of the hard chargers in the series. Nemechek, another driver without sponsorship on the hood.
And Nemechek's car working very well right now, but you see Jimmy Hensley all along. Look at the difference. And you see Nemechek turn it sideways coming off of turn 2 there, getting a lot of pressure from Robert Presley. Presley in 2nd place. He's a lap down. There's no use for him to push his car. He can't catch Jimmy Hensley, barring a miracle.
And the problems for Chuck Bound continue. They have dropped a cylinder.
Yeah, Bound definitely running off the pace now, but he's just trying to hang on to that 4th position. He should be the last car in that lap that he's in, so he may be able to hang on to the 4th position.
There's just 13 laps to go in this race. Jimmy Hensley has been losing points to leader Kenny Wallace and Bobby Labonte by little drips and drabs. Well, perhaps he'll stem the flow and stem the bleeding with a victory today. Certainly will move him right back in the thick of things. And maybe just as important as the points, Glenn Jarrett, is the fact it just gives them momentum, gives them a boost of confidence, because this will be his 3rd victory of the year.
Well, another thing it gives him is about $7,500 to $8,000 for winning this race to get him to the next race at Bristol.
And the quick jump that he got on that restart really plays to his advantage because he has absolutely no one in front of him right now to contend with. Now, a car is starting to come into the bottom portion of the screen, but we've been back under green for almost 10 laps.
2 years ago, we saw the same situation at Rougemont. Jimmy Spencer lapped the field and was the only other car on the lead lap at race's end.
Before the race today, we asked Hensley, who sits at 3rd in the points, we said, what's it going to take for you to overtake Kenny Wallace and Bobby Labonte to win your first Grand National Championship?
We're running real good right now. Like I say, looks like when they have trouble, I have trouble. It's a thing. I think it's coming down here at the end, who can get by with the least amount of trouble, and maybe 1 to 3. You know, some of the guys in the back's coming in and gaining on us too. Like Chuck, he's been running real good lately, so you know I don't really count him out of this picture either. So it's going to be interesting coming down to the final races, and hopefully we can get things turned around while we get some of our luck back and finish some races.
Hensley's crew chief by very nature is not a man who smiles a whole lot of the track, but he has to have a big grin on his face, and he's trackside with Bill Hennessy.
King, you've got a lap on the field. You got to feel great going after win number 3. The strategy played right in your hands. 4 tires and fuel early.
And looks like our luck gonna change today. I hope we still got a few laps to go, but we had bad luck all week.
Well, their luck is changing, and he doesn't really want to say a whole lot. Crews are, by nature, a trifle superstitious, aren't they, Glenn?
Absolutely, Mark. The one thing that they don't want to do is to count this victory before it happens. You're taking a look at Robert Presley right there. Still a fine showing for him to come home in second. Jimmy Hensley, car 25. The only car in front of him on the racetrack right now is the 6th of Tommy Houston. And Jimmy has such a lead over the field that he's not really in any big hurry to put that lap on Houston. He's content to ride right where he is, take no chances on getting together, making contact with another car.
And this isn't the margin between first and second on the lead lap. We're talking about a lap and a quarter between our race leader, Jimmy Hensley, and second place, the 59 car of Robert Presley, who won this race back in June.
2 laps to go for Jimmy Hensley. Hoosiers taking it on the chin many times this year, but they delivered a blow at Hickory. This could be their second victory of 1991 with a very convincing win for Jimmy Hensley. He's coming down to the stripe. Be 1 lap to go as he gets the white flag.
Jimmy Hensley, who's run a large portion of this season without sponsorship. The whole Don Beverly racing team hasn't given up. Their efforts will pay off this afternoon as the Ridgeway, Virginia driver comes through turn 4 for the last time and takes the checkered flag in the Texas Pete Sauces 300. Second place will go to that car, Robert Presley. The Oldsmobile comes to the checkered flag as we have a spin up in turn number 4. That is Jay Fogelman bringing the race to an eventful conclusion after Jimmy Hensley tried to make it a boring show.
Butch Miller finished in 3rd. He also on Hoosier tires. Chuck Bound coming home 4th. So good day for Hoosier tires. They put it to the big guy from Ohio, Goodyear Tires, as they win the Texas Pete Sauces 300 here in Rougemont, North Carolina. Jimmy Hensley with his 3rd win of 1991 will start to collect his thoughts in victory lane. We'll come back and talk to him as we continue from Rougemont, North Carolina and the Orange County Speedway. Today's coverage of the Texas Pete Sauces 300 is being brought to you by Skin Bracer. No better way to face the day. Skin Bracer by Menin.
Jimmy Hensley led 102 laps of this event, the last 49 to make an absolute shambles of the finish for his 3rd victory of the year. He's down at the start-finish line in this Eagle One Victory Lane interview with Bill Hennessy.
Well, it's a nice, smooth race for Jimmy Hensley here. Jimmy, everything worked in your direction. When a driver has to come in early and take on 4 tires and take on fuel, he's really got to question, is this the good move? How did it come through with you?
Well, I think it's pretty obvious, you know, with a lap on the field, but I was a little skeptical when we pitted at 100 laps, because last race day we went like 170 and, you know, got 4 tires, and I thought that worked real good. But today we got 4 tires in 100, and the car was still, you know, it was slipping and sliding, but, you know, compared to everybody else, we was hooked up pretty good at the end. And I just can't say enough about the crew. This week's kind of been tough. We've done everything this week. We wrecked last week in Indianapolis, totaled the car, went to Dalton, Munden tested, the hood blew off and destroyed another car, blew a motor. Went to Bristol Wednesday, blew a motor. So these guys have really worked hard this week, and you know, I dedicate this race to them.
Certainly are peaks and valleys in racing. You won this event on Hoosier tires.
Well, you know, we've been with Bob Newton and Hoosier tires since Charlotte, and you know, people, you know, is kind of laughed at us at times, but I think today we're doing it laughing, and I'm glad Bob got in victory lane. He works real hard, and you know, the Hoosier tire worked good today. So you know, we'll come back next week and try to get them again.
As an unsponsored car, you're now on the quest and on a possible championship trail. You picked up some more points on Bobby Labonte and Kenny Wallace this afternoon. Is there a chance that you may pick up that championship crown?
Well, Bill, it's something we hadn't give up hope on all year. Even though we had that sponsorship, we've run good every race. Flat tires and just odd things happening to us has put us back some. And, you know, I think, you know, you just walk up and down pit road, people tell you we got a good team and we've run good all year, so hopefully we can hang on and, you know, do something at the end of the year maybe.
You talked about your adversity, and in talking about the adversity, how hard is it for a crew to change motors, keep the body work up on these cars, and for 17 weekends transverse up and down the East Coast?
It's very tough. Like I say, you know, we tore up a lot of stuff this week. 2 days just more or less testing, trying to get to who's your tire competitive with Goodyear tire, and it's something we had to do, and we really didn't have the cars, you know, to do it in case we wrecked. We were down to one car, and matter of fact, that's all we got right now. So the other two's being repaired. So, you know, it's tough. Sometimes you kind of think when you're racing, you might not go in a hole or something, and you know, but you know, we drove hard today and we come out to victory.
Congratulations. There are peaks and valleys in racing. You're on a high right now.
I'd like to say hi to my daughter, Myrtle Beach. Hi, Amy.
You can do that when you just want to race. I'm surprised you didn't say hi. Yeah, I'm surprised you didn't say hi to a lot of other folks. The Virginia gentleman, that is not a nickname that was given to him by some public relations person. He is genuinely liked by everybody in the Grand National Garage. A very popular victory here today at the Orange County Speedway. We'll be back with more post-race activities, and we'll actually vote on the air for the Miller Pit Crew of the Race. You'll hear our thoughts about that when we return. Jimmy Hensley is the winner here this afternoon under beautifully sunny skies in Rougemont, North Carolina. Folks, just a reminder here that the announcers on this telecast are selected and compensated by Southeastern Communications Group Incorporated. Well, gentlemen, Glenn Jarrett and Mark Garrow, it's time for us to vote on the Miller Pit Crew of the Race, and I think we've got a very difficult decision on our hands this afternoon based on the performance of a couple of cars. Glenn, why don't you go ahead and give us your vote and your reasons for that vote?
Well, I certainly will, Mark. But first of all, there's one thing. I was listening to that disclaimer there about the announcers getting compensated. You guys get paid for this?
We know where to send the bill now. At least we know where to send the bill.
Basically, announcing is you get paid to talk. There aren't many jobs like that. But what about it? What about the Miller Pit Crew of the Race?
Obviously, you've got to consider the great effort made by Jeff Hensley and his crew on Chuck Bound's car after the crash here earlier today. However, given the circumstances under which Jimmy Hensley's crew performed this week with all the bad luck they had, putting all that aside, I still think you got to go with King's crew, Jimmy Hensley, on the fact that they made the call early on, got their pit stop over with, did their 4 tires. That won the race for them, so my vote is for Jimmy Hensley's crew.
Well, I'm going to put Mark Garrow on the spot to break the tie, because after due deliberation, I'm going to vote for Jeff Hensley and that crew. I was down in the pits just a few minutes after that car was towed back in on the wrecker. There was fluid pouring out from underneath it. There were lines cut. There was significant right front suspension damage. The entire crew jumped in, started to work on it. The fact that Chuck Bound led a very good portion of this afternoon's race. He led more than 77 laps according to our unofficial count. That is a remarkable performance coming through the pack from the 18th position. And my vote will go to Jeff Hensley and that crew. Even though Chuck did lose a cylinder and did run out of gas, they proved their mettle in getting a car back together under very difficult circumstances in what would take a normal garage a couple of days to fix.
All right. Hopefully the guys in the audio truck have a drum roll or something for the tie-breaking vote. Give you guys enough advance notice. I am going to, a second vote to Jeff Hensley as far as, a great job, and also to the other crews that helped them put the car to the race. But my vote has to go to Bobby King, because ultimately the guys who win the race usually have made those critical judgments at the critical times, and they made 2 tough choices today, and they were both correct, and they come across the winner. So my vote goes to Bobby King and that Don Beverly crew.
It's a split decision, but I don't think a vote would have been a bad vote either way, as we've documented so well here in the last couple of minutes. We'll come back in just a moment to present Bobby King with the Miller Pit Crew of the Race Award as we continue with post-race activities from the Orange County Speedway, where Jimmy Hensley has won for the 3rd time this season. Don't go away.
Live to Rougemont, North Carolina in the Orange County Speedway. A lot less hectic than it was just a few moments ago, as we saw thrilling, I think I said that right, thrilling 300-lap race here with Jimmy Hensley coming home the winner. And to accept now the Miller Genuine Draft Pit Crew of the Race Award, let's go down to Bill Hennessy with the winner, Bobby King.
Fellows, I didn't have the opportunity to cast a vote, but I would have cast mine for Bobby King. The reasons being is this. It's very seldom that any driver and crew chief get to go to victory lane. Races are run week after week across the United States and around the world, but very few drivers have the opportunity to take a checkered flag, and oftentimes the guys behind the scene are the unsung heroes. And for Bobby King, we want to congratulate you on making the type of a decision that you made to bring him in early, put the fuel in the car, get the 4 tires on, and get him a lap up on the field at the end when everybody else started falling by the wayside. So the Miller Genuine Draft Pit Crew Award goes to you and your crew from everyone at the TNN family.
Well, we thank you a lot, and I want to thank Don Beverly. He hung with us all year. We didn't have a sponsor, and he put the money up, and we appreciate Hoosiers helping us. We had a good tie here today, and also Oldsmobile. I mean, if it hadn't been for them 3, we wouldn't be here today.
Well, it's a long way to go in the rest of the season, but looks like you guys may be in contention to win that championship.
Oh, we ain't giving up. I mean, we had bad luck all last week. We went tested twice and had bad luck at both tracks, but we bounced back. We'll be back Bristol. We run good at every race.
Congratulations to Bobby King. We've got Eldon Sawyer and Patty Moe standing by, fellas. We'll find out what's happening in the family feud.
Well, we knew it had to happen eventually. 2 very competitive drivers running in the same series that someday, some way, they were going to come together. And early on this afternoon, they did. On lap 56, Patty Moise and her newlywed husband, Eldon Sawyer, crashed on the Speedway. We heard Eldon's comments. There was a lot of race noise before he was attempting to get his car back in the Speedway, but our enterprising Bill Hennessy has caught up with the 2 of them, and he's ready to get the version of maybe the battling Bickersons, Bill?
Well, it could be that. I really don't know. Both of them are smiling. Eldon's smiling, Patty's smiling. It's almost as if they're still on their honeymoon, but the inevitable happened here at the racetrack today. I know your PR people have probably briefed you about, should this happen at the racetrack, here's what you're supposed to say. But now, probably in the heat of the battle, all that went by the wayside. Patty, what happened on the racetrack?
Well, apparently we have just a... Man, my husband came in, hit me, spun me out, caused a, heck of a wreck. It was really awful.
That doesn't sound like a PR answer.
No, actually, we must have a little bit too much rear brake. When I went in behind the 05 car, he slowed down more than I intended to. And when I used just a little bit more brake, the car just came around, backed in the wall, and Elton just didn't have anywhere to go.
Okay, Eldon, from your driver's point of view, here you're coming up on this lady. You're behind her. She's out of shape. What did you do?
Well, she just let me off the hook for one thing, so that sounds pretty good. But it was just one of those racing deals, Patty. Like I say, she got in the corner and then may have got in the brake a little too hard or whatever, and the car got out from underneath her, and I just didn't have anywhere to go. It was unfortunate because both cars were running fairly well, but, I'm sure the PR people, they'll have a lot of fun with this. We got 2 tore-up race cars to fix now, though.
What kind of evasive action did you try to take?
Well, I went over there and I said that she'd have to cook dinner all this next week. I said, that's going to be your job all week. So, and probably had to vacuum the floors, too.
What kind of domestic chores does he do?
Well, he's pretty good. He feeds the cats and takes care of them, and he does anything that I need to help me. But, I mean, he's the one with the main job, so I figure I have to do the stuff around the house.
Well, it wasn't too bad. I'm going to ask him to kiss and make up for everybody here on TNN and see what they do. But see, hey, everything turns out okay, even on the racetrack.
Everything you wanted to know about the Sawyer family at home, you saw it first live here on TNN. Let's give you the final unofficial rundown of this afternoon's Texas Pete Sauces 300. Of course, your race winner, Jimmy Hensley, for the 3rd time this season, finishing a lap down in 2nd place. Robert Presley, the winner here back in the earlier portion of June. Then it was Butch Miller in 3rd, Steve Grissom in 4th, and Chuck Bound dropped cylinder and all, came home 5th.
In the number 6 spot, Joe Nemechek, he just keeps churning out those top 10 finishes. Kenny Wallace, with all the problems he had, still got a 7th place. A great comeback for that crew. Jay Fogelman was 8th. The rest of the top 10, Bobby Labonte and rookie Tracy Leslie.
Sitting in the 11th spot, rookie Jeff Gordon, followed by David Green, pretty much right where they qualified. In fact, an all-rookie board. Troy Beebe in the 13th spot with Richard Lassiter 14th and Jeff Green 15th.
In the 16th spot, Tommy Houston. What a long day it was for the Roses Stores Buick. Ward Burton was 17th, Shauna Robinson 18th, Bobby Dotter 19th, and in the 20th spot, the Massachusetts driver Dave Resendiz.
Todd Bodine finished 21st, followed by Patty Moise. Tom Peck, now these are all cars that did not complete the 300 laps. Tom Peck in the 23rd spot, then Jeff Burton and rookie Mike Oliver in the 25th place.
The rest of the field, Eddie Goodson, Elton Sawyer, Ed Barrier, Cecil Eunice, and the northern driver Joe Bessie from Maine.
Now in the Grand National standings, we've done some unofficial computations here in the booth, and Jimmy Hensley picks up 34 points on Kenny Wallace, who's the leader, so his margin is now cut down to approximately 164 points. Now, with Wallace finishing ahead of Bobby Labonte, he picks up an additional 8 points, so the margin is now 92 as the Happy Crew has the sponsors' hats, the sponsors' banners, the obligatory photographs at the start-finish line, the victory lane here at Orange County Speedway.
With the problems that he had, Kenny Wallace has to be so ever thankful to leave here with another top 10 and another gain in the point standings.
Well, I think you're right, Mark. He certainly does feel fortunate. One guy that's not feeling fortunate right now, and we've kind of overlooked a little bit, that's David Green. He never got out of the top 3 all day long. He ran out of gas at the end of the race. Hang in there, David. It'll get better.
That's the story from Orange County Speedway. My thanks to Bill Hennessy trackside, to Glenn Jarrett and Mark Arrow. This is Mark Allen. We hope you enjoyed stop number 23 of the Busch Grand National Series. We'll see you again soon.
With a win already at Orange County.
Today's coverage of the Texas Pete Sauces 300 has been brought to you by New Haviland Formula 3 Motor Oil. Add more life to your car. By Miller Genuine Draft, cold filtered for real draft taste. So get out of the old, get into the cold. By Eagle One Car Care Products. Eagle One is visual perfection. And by Champion Batteries, when you can't wait to get started. TNN Pit Reporters fire retardant clothing provided by Leaf Safety Equipment, Conway, South Carolina, and London, Ontario, Canada. Suit graphics courtesy of JB Lettering and Monogramming, Binghamton, New York.